All right, guys. It is 6:30. It is Tuesday, the 19th, and we have got number 24 in the house. Wesley Tate. Good evening, Wesley. Good to have you and good to see you, bud.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you for having me on, man. It seems like it was yesterday when we met in Vegas and talked about this. So that was 3 months have kind of flown by. So honored to be on the show. So
They have, and I appreciate you making some time tonight. And I really appreciate you moving up a little bit to help fit with my schedule tonight. But guys, don't feel sorry for Mr. Tate. He lives in one of the prettiest and nicest cities in the country out on the West Coast. Tell him where you reside these days.
yeah, I'm currently in San Diego, California. Been out here for a little bit over 5 years, but yeah, been enjoying my time here. It's expensive, but it's not a bad place to be. So
Well, the expense, the trade-off is this man gets to wear shorts all year round, and he can walk right out his door, and he hits the sand and the water within a matter of moments. So we all want to live vicariously through that for you, Wesley. So good to see you tonight.
yeah, good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Guys, number 24 played 09 to 13. He played for Coach Johnson, Caldwell, and Franklin, mainly playing running back in a very crowded backfield of some talent when he was there. A little bit of wide receiver, but we're going to get into all of that in a minute. But he resided, we'll call it Hendersonville, we'll call it East Nashville. I want you to tell us what it was like growing up in that part of the state and the outside of Birmingham, Nashville. Wesley, what was it like your childhood back in the day?
Yeah, so I'm originally from East Nashville. Born and raised there. My folks are raised there. My mom went to Maplewood. My grandparents lived off of Dickerson Road, Ewan Lane, right down the street from the original Princess. I think the original Princess. So most of my life I grew up, well, it was kind of half and half. So I grew up in East Nashville, and then once my older brother and I started going to high school, we moved out to Hendersonville to go to Pope John Paul now, Pope Preparatory School. And but yeah, I mean, living in the city, I mean, great, honestly. Just at that time, the Titans were new to town, and just a lot of buzz in the city, and a lot of growth. I kind of got to see Nashville as its infancy stages, and and then growing up half of my life in kind of Hendersonville, kind of really got to be outside of in the burbs a little bit, and Hendersonville is still kind of on the come up too, and just to kind of see where it is now, it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, I would say overall, man, I had a great experience. Being from Nashville, and eventually moving out to Hendersonville, which is 20 minutes from town. So you're back in Nashville within a snap of a finger. So, but yeah, had a great time. Being a kid from Nashville and staying in Nashville. So.
Well, I know you've got athletes scattered all through your family. How important were athletics to your family as a whole and to you specifically? And I mean, when you're like in elementary and junior high, middle school, junior high, were athletics just a central part of y'all's life, or was it just something you just did on the side and grew to enjoy it?
Yeah, so sports has always been something that's been a part of our lives. My dad was a college football player, played at Tennessee State back in the 80s, or late 70s, early 80s, and had a lot of success there. He had a lot of records there. I think recently just got broken, but and then my mom's super athletic, was a cheerleader, and even my grandparents, my grandmother on my mom's side was at Tennessee State. She was a professor there for 30 plus years, and she was one of the first women's basketball coach there as well. So we were always kind of involved in sports. Grandfather was a big golfer. So sports were always something that we were around in some degree, whether we were playing in them or we were going to games and whatnot. But, the good thing about my folks, they never really forced it on us. They just kind of let us gravitate towards sports over time. We picked up things, and, especially my brother and I, we played a lot of sports in the backyard, and, tackle football with the neighbors, each other, and basketball. I mean, our first sport that we actually even played was baseball, and I think maybe if I would have stuck with baseball, I probably had a shot to continue to play. But yeah, sports was just something that was always involved in our lives. It started from an early age, t-ball, so super pivotal in our lives. So.
With all those generations of athletes, I don't know if there's truth. You can confirm or deny this. That actually your younger sister maybe the most athletic of all the Tate family members. Is there any grounding there?
Probably so. And so I have twin little sisters, by the way. I don't know if you know that. They're twins actually. So it's Brianna and Deanna. So yeah, I mean they got multiple state championships. They're all Americans in track. I mean, they you could be definitely right there. I mean, they and
I
during
was
their
going to
time.
say they put
So
their hardware up against any Tate family member.
I would agree. So yeah, just super blessed that that God gave us the abilities and, obviously, take some hard work too. But mama and daddy and everybody else was like, hey, you get you to high school after that, you're on your own. So whether you you gonna get a scholarship or you gonna hey, you're gonna have to figure it out. So sports is our way to get to the next level.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the competitiveness within the family, specifically you and your brother coming up. You both excelled at whatever sports that you played, and I'm sure at a young age, people were starting to notice you guys on all the different sports fields and competitions. At what ages did it start to become a conversation? Hey, I really think I can play after Pope. I really think I can go to the next level and see how well I can do in the college level. Did that, Wesley, did that start in junior high, or did it really kind of take into high school to really kind of cement that thought process?
Yeah, I definitely think it was always something in the back of our minds. I mean, we've always just been involved in multiple sports. We never really just hyper focused on one sport. We play, basketball, baseball, football, even ran track, golf. So we did a lot of different sports, but I guess it really didn't become like an actual thing until like really like middle school, early high school, and after my brother especially, I mean, after his first freshman year, he was getting attention already, and kind of similar to same with myself. So really, kind of like eighth grade, ninth grade was when those opportunities and visions of the opportunity to continue to play past high school. But the thing that I never really thought about that when I was out there playing, in high school. I just thought, hey, I'm having fun. I want to compete, right? And as I really got to be like a sophomore, junior, senior, well, I'm like, hey, well, this is my ticket, right? Because I mean, my whole goal originally, I wanted to play basketball in college, but originally, reality set in real quick for me when I started going to AAU tournaments, and like I'm playing against guys that are like 6'8", playing the same position. I'm like, wait a minute, like I could probably play, but I'd probably be playing small ball. So, and that's when I really kind of started to gravitate towards football more so. But yeah, definitely like middle school to like freshman year was when those we kind of got the vision of that. Hey, we both could compete at the next level in college. So
Well, with educators in the family, how did that balance take place from I guess from priorities? Sports has always been part of your life, but hey, we can't forget about what's really important here, the long run education aspect of that. Was it a strict household from that standpoint, or did you and your brother and your sisters, did y'all just, you had your priorities, you got your education and your grades in order so that the sports didn't have to be compromised?
yeah, definitely like education was super important. My mom was not afraid to hold you out of sports, if your grades or like you weren't acting right in school. My mom didn't care what the coaches says, like, hey, someone said he's not playing, right? And that was it. No explanation at all. No, that's it. Wesley Golden, Breed, they're not taking care of their business. So hey, they can't because it's student athlete, not athlete student, right? And my grandmother being a professor in college and coaching and teaching student athletes, she was super like big on that too, is like getting that education and staying in the books. So I mean, we weren't perfect students at all. I mean, we obviously weren't necessarily straight A students, but yeah, it was definitely always like school academics, behaving, being a good young man is most importantly, and then secondly is sports. So yeah, it was super important in our household.
Well, I probably knew the answer even before you gave that great explanation, because especially when it's the moms or the grandmas, grandmothers who are the educators, you're going to fly right, or you're not going to fly at all, I suspect, in the Tate household.
Definitely not. Especially my grandmother. She didn't play around. So
Oh, guys, I've got Wesley Tate, number 24. Wesley played for us 09 to 13, and we're just kind of getting into we're still in the East Nashville, Hendersonville time period. And Wesley, take us through a little bit of that recruiting experience because some guys crave it. They love the attention. They love it when the coaches are coming around and the phones are blowing up. And then there are others who absolutely just don't. It gets too stressful. They don't like it at all. They push it off on their coach or maybe mom and dad. But how did that play out with not just you, but obviously your brother? And it wasn't in a vacuum or not in a tunnel, so to speak. But how did you deal with that?
yeah, so I had a great example kind of leading up to the process and my older brother going through that process. And I would say he had a more demand on the market than I did, for sure in terms of opportunities, but I had plenty as well. So I guess we just really we dealt with it as best we could. I mean, it wasn't over the top. I mean, we weren't like, number one recruits. We weren't, 5-star guys. My brother was, I think he was maybe a 4-star and pretty highly recruited, but it wasn't the point where it was like crazy, like you hear these stories nowadays, or even like the last 10 years where these, recruiting visits and, it wasn't anything crazy like that. But, and then also we had a head coach, Jeff Brothers, who's a Vandy alum. He was our football coach. So,
I got to stop you right there because that absolutely blows my mind. Because
mm,
Jeff Brothers was my teammate, and
mm,
you're not that old. He's not that. Wait, I'm not that old. Where Jeff Brothers could have been your coach. That just. I'm sorry to do that to you, but that blows my mind.
yeah,
Yeah,
Coach
Jeff.
Brothers.
Jeff was an all SEC dude. He was quarterback, defensive back. He was a hell of an athlete. And I don't know if you ever met his mom, Beverly, and I don't know if she was still at the school
Oh
at
yeah.
the time. But oh, she was like everybody's mom, on the team. But go ahead. I rudely interrupted you about that experience.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, yeah, I think from my brother, I think I don't know if he necessarily liked the process. We got recruited. Well, my brother was getting recruited Vandy early, right? And so that's kind of how I started getting in the fold. I would just come with my brother, right? It's like, well, because me and my brother were super tight. We do everything together. He goes, I go. That was my mom's rule, right? Growing up, hey, if you're gonna go, you got to take your brother. So, I mean, I've been around Vandy football for a long time, like freshman, probably sophomore year. So they had kind of softly been recruiting me, and then obviously once my brother decided to go where he went, and then attention kind of turned towards me. And so for me, the process was, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I mean, it was, kind of nice to get kind of chased a little bit, in the whole process. But, the end of the day, it's like, once that's over with, you get to the school, right? That's, you gotta, that's out the door, right? Now you're there, right? So you really get to see what it's all about. But I would say the overall process was, and it was pretty straightforward. And like I said, we had, mentors and coaches like Coach Brothers, who has been through the process. He's coached plenty of guys who've been recruited at all levels of football. So, we had that guidance as well as other like coaches that they're on the staff that had been through the same process. So I think that helped a lot.
You come along at the age you're being recruited, let's say 06, 07, 08, kind of sophomore, junior, senior years before making a decision. That's at the very infancy, I think, of how social media was starting to shape the recruiting process and impacting it. Was that part of your experience with social media yet? Instagram or whatever it was at the time, did that play a part of your process?
It wasn't actually. It was the biggest things was like rivals. That was like the big thing, right? Rivals was it, right? There wasn't like social media stuff. You would have your own tape. You could send it in physically, send a tape in or a DVD, but it wasn't any of the huddles or none of the tools and things they have today. So it was I would say compared to today, it's old school, right? Coaches come in and they call you on the intercom, come to the weight room, and it's probably still that way. But no, there was no like really like social media involvement in the process. It was just kind of like the rivals was like it, and then you'd have just, obviously coaches had relationships with college coaches and
Um,
all that stuff, but no, it wasn't really a part of my process.
Well, I was going to say they still put out those magazines with the rankings, and I don't. I think you probably were some of the first classes that had the star rankings. Back, 100 years ago, we didn't have anything like that, other than you'd be put in a magazine, faces to watch or star, those kind of things. But that, Wesley, that's interesting that you're on the forefront of when that started. But Wesley, we got a whole bunch of Commodores in here that want to say hello to you. We got OJ Fleming. We got L Banks, Ladarius Banks in the house. Kenny Cole, Ed Z. We got Roosevelt Noble. We got some nobility in the house tonight for Wesley Tate.
Appreciate y'all being here.
What is it about the sport of football growing up as opposed to any other sports that you played? And I get it, you were the sport of the season, and it may have been multiple sports. You were probably practicing one and playing another at the same day. But what was it about the game of football that really ultimately won out for you? I know you obviously with your height capped out the basketball experience, but what was it about football that really was a love for you?
Yeah, it's just the whole like one mission, one team, and like for football, it's interesting because everybody has to be on the same page to make a play work, right? Because if one player is out of position and so I really kind of enjoyed that aspect of it of having like a collective effort as a team. And then I mean, also as football generally, like I like to hit, right? I mean, I was consider myself as a bigger running back, which probably later on I paid for injuries, but I like that, like the violence of it. I enjoyed that, and yeah, I mean, nothing like running out, Friday night, Saturday, and you got thousands of people out there, and yeah, I just love the whole environment of it, and just being a part of a team. Really, I mean, it's the ultimate team sport to me because, like I mentioned, it's just everybody has to be on the same page to be successful, and so yeah.
Because if one doesn't do his assignment, the other 10 aren't successful most of the time. So
Yep.
you're so right about that. Now you had plenty of offers. Why Vanderbilt? Why not somewhere else?
Yeah, I did have a few offers, and so for me, it just felt right. It was just a feeling that I had, and I went other places. I had a better trip. I had better trip from top to bottom. Better equipment, better facilities, had a better time. But it was just that feeling. It felt right to me. It felt like, hey, Vanderbilt really wanted me, and also, my senior year, I guess 08, 09, that was a season where Vandy was coming off that bowl win off from New City Bowl, and we started off 6-0. And so I just felt like, a lot of momentum, obviously a great education, just the feeling of, hey, this is where I belong. It felt right. And then also just I had the opportunity to play early. I didn't, but the opportunity was available. And so, and then also great education. I mean, you can't deny that, right? I mean, regardless of whatever happens football wise, if you go there and make the relationships, get your education, and you graduate, right? Like, you're already on another level than somebody else from another school, in my opinion. So, just a combination of all those things, and also just I didn't want to stay home for school, but it just felt right. And even when I was at Vandy, I didn't feel like I was home because I feel like you're in a bubble when you're actually on campus. So, and then the staff, I love the staff, Coach Kitchens, Coach Johnson, OG Bobby Johnson, all the staff, had built good relationships with them over the years as well. And then Magic, Magic, he's gonna feed you well too. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, did you live on campus or near campus all of your time there, or did you ever commute back home?
yeah, I lived on campus for my first 3 years, and then I moved off campus my last two. But no, I didn't commute back home. I had an apartment, so I wasn't going back home. Once I'm out the house, I'm gone. So
I was gonna say it'd be hard to move back into the house, particularly if you had two younger sisters still living at the house. That would be no, it'd be a way different experience. But
right.
I know that you came in as a running back, but sometime during your career at Vanderbilt, you were playing a little wide receiver. Kind of take us through a little bit of that because there were some awfully talented backs in that backfield at the same time. It was kind of a crowded backfield at times.
Yeah, I mean, I came with a couple guys that are, maybe some of the best that ever done it, and Warren Norman and Zach Stacy both came in together. So definitely was crowded backfield, but I felt like there were still opportunities for me. And I guess at the time we were maybe a little shorthanded with receivers, and they felt like I was best used in a slot position. Because kind of at the slot position, you're still, you know, a running back, but you're just catching the ball on the outside. So, they just felt like, hey, let's give me an opportunity to get on the field more, and slot receiver was it. So, I'm glad that I was able to do that because it helped me understand, the offense as well as the game of football, right? Because you really got to read coverages, you got to understand like defenses more. I feel like as a receiver. So yeah.
What was from that transition of being, at a fairly small school in high school, you're the big guy, you get the recognition, you're the one who's relied upon on the field, coming into now the SEC, the Division One. We all have um, that transition time period, and what I mean by that, from an athlete's mindset, you're an extremely confident person and player and student and athlete when you're a senior. You've got everything right there that you've worked for. You're starting to get those accolades. But now we get to the college level, everybody's like that. And sometimes doubt creeps in. And I'm not saying it happened with you, but sometimes, man, he's a little bit faster than me, or he's a little bit taller than me. What was your mindset that freshman year, seeing all the competition? How did you deal with it? Because sometimes it can be a big hurdle. Now, others, like a duck to water, no big deal.
Mhm.
What was it for you when you're seeing all of this competition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, well, hey, I better get it. I better get my stuff in order. If I want to get on this field, right? So, and it's not always the fastest guy, the biggest guy that always plays, right? It's like who's the most prepared, who can the coach trust to go out there and do the job, right? Because I played with guys who way more talented than the guys who played, but you know, do you have the mental side of it to go out there and like perform your job, right? Like and know your playbook and stuff like that. So but I think all that stuff just raises your level of play and it raises your level of play, right? Either you raise it up or you don't play. That's just the way it is, and that's how the real world works too, right? So, it takes a little while for some guys. Some guys they hop right in there and you know pick off right where they left off. Some people might take a little while, but for myself, it just really just opened my eyes. Like, hey, I need to like get this in order. And feel like it did take me a little while, but eventually, I ended up getting there. But I think it just helps you raise your level of play.
I think let me ask you, did you take a redshirt year during your time?
I did my first year.
Well, that's what my next, I guess, question was going to be. Did you want to be redshirted? Did you fight it? Were you accepting of it? Did you learn from it? Did it help you?
Yeah, looking back, I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that they ended up because it was a couple chances where I was going to get in there and play. I traveled with the team and stuff, but being that it was a 2-10 season, I'm glad that I didn't. Right. And I think as a player, it helped me to really kind of like get myself entrenched in like the whole like. I mean, I felt like I was pretty prepared, but like it's still when you're actually out there, it's different, right? The college having to deal with the academic rigor as well as the practice schedule and all that. But also, hey, I'm a college kid. I'm trying to be social too, right? So just trying to balance all those things out, or we really don't have balance, but it was a good thing for me that I redshirted for sure.
Did it? Did you watch those games thinking, "Man, I can do what those guys are doing," or did you take the mindset? I'm not saying that you took a bad mindset. It just sometimes it becomes a hurdle when you're watching the game from the stands or on TV, and you're like, I should be out there right now. I know I can do that, or I can do better than what I'm seeing. Did that ever creep in, or or was that not part of that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, anytime out somebody's out there, I'm not playing. Yeah, I mean, I definitely for me, I'm like, yeah, I could be out there doing that, and even past my red shirt year, right? Even opportunities when I wasn't out on the field, like man, I need to, So I feel like if you're not a competitor, like if you are a competitor, then that's what your thought. I mean, I'd feel like you want to be out on the field. So, but like I said, it ended up being a good option for me, and gave me another year to kind of get under my belt, and end up working out, and glad that I did it. So glad that it was an option for me.
But did you think that maybe now you might, looking back, think that? But Wesley, your redshirt freshman year, you guys go 2-10.
Hmm.
Your redshirt, or excuse me, your second year now, your redshirt sophomore year, or your second year on campus.
Hmm.
Redshirt, how do they describe that? Redshirt sophomore year, um, under Coach Caldwell, new coach, new head coach, um, 2-10.
Hmm.
Going into that third year, was there any doubt to you in your mind, man, do I want to continue with this program? Do I want to consider transfer? And did that ever, because I know a lot of guys did entertain that, particularly during Coach Caldwell's that one year that was just kind of a wasted year for most players. Did that ever become part of your process, or you were sticking through it and getting that education, and no matter who was going to be coaching?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even that first year, right? I thought about, well, man, I need to. When am I going to play here? And it definitely something that crossed my mind, and whatnot, and yeah, definitely something that crossed my mind for sure. So
Well, talk to us about after back-to-back 2 and 10 years, you're going into your now spring of your third, well, what would be your third year?
mm,
I don't remember if Coach Caldwell was there for spring or if Coach Franklin had come in by this point. Was he there yet for that
yeah,
spring?
so last game of the season, play Wake Forest. Coach Caldwell tells us, hey, I'm not going to be here next year. That whole situation, and so that game happens. We don't have a coach for probably about a month.
Yeah.
And I think it's finally, I think mid-December or something, and they make the announcement of, hey, we're, Coach Franklin's going to be our coach. So, yeah, we had Franklin for that spring. So,
How different was it the day he hit the door compared to Coach John? I mean, very different personalities. Probably, I didn't play for either men, but I'm sure vastly different approaches to the game and treatment of the team. Was that an adjustment for you guys, for you personally, or did you kind of take to Coach Franklin pretty quickly?
yeah, no, it was a complete 180 change just overnight. I mean, just how we did everything from, the locker room to, I mean, the biggest difference to me, like immediately, was the strength and conditioning program. I mean, it was just like night and day. And I will never forget that off season. I mean, really any off season, but that off season right there, because I mean, we haven't had a coach for a month and a half. What are guys really doing, right? And
Yeah.
uh, it was completely 180. And I remember myself, Wesley Johnson, Thad McCaney, and maybe Fitz Lasson came in to come meet the staff, shake some hands, just kind of get to meet some people. And we got, Coach Galt at the time asked us for, you guys want to work out? Sure, we'll work out. And I just remember just after that workout, I mean, I remember I just text everybody that I knew on the team, or I had their number, and I'm like, hey, I hope you working out, because like this what's about to happen is it's about to be something real. Because I mean, I just remember just like that workout, and I'm just like, oh man, like
But
we in,
was that a good response by you, or is that a uh-oh? We don't
it
know
was
what
it
to
was a
do.
uh-oh, because I know no one was in shape to do what we just did. I know it was going to be like that every single day for a long time, because I mean, it's just when you got a new staff, you got to come in and change the culture, right? You got to, I mean, that's everything that we did. So, at the time it was a oh, but for the team's sake, and it was a great thing, right? Because obviously we ended up putting a good product out in the field because of those things. So
Well, you go from 2-10, 2-10 to now 6-7, and then have the back-to-back 9-4 teams. And I want to talk about the offense a little bit those last 2 years. What was going on for you in that backfield, and what was it like with all all that talent that was finally getting there and just raising everybody's abilities and expectations up. That must have been fun for you the last 3 years, particularly the last 2 years, I would think, in such a fun, my word, such a fun atmosphere compared to the first two seasons.
Yeah, I mean, as an offense, I mean, we had that first year, we made a bowl game the first year, right? Which I don't know that if anybody expected much from us, right? But, just based on the work that we put in off season, I mean, we had no doubt that we could get that. We had aspirations of doing much more. But in terms of an offense, we had another year under the belt. I mean, we had some guys that, had some experience with the offensive coordinator at the time. I think it was Coach Donovan. Who was the offensive coordinator, same system, and then Franklin being more of a offensive guy, right? So really just had that confidence that we could run this offense, and we just had the pieces. We just had we had the right pieces. I mean, in the backfield, quarterback position, Jordan Rogers, and then Austin Carter Samuels and Patton Robinette. And often, receiver wise, we were pretty stacked. You know what I mean? Like, having Jordan Matthews, Chris Boyd, Jonathan Krause, and obviously the backfield, myself and Stacy and Jerron Seymour and Brian Kimbrough and a lot of the guys that we had. I mean, we just were pretty stacked in terms of talent wise. But yeah, I think having that extra year under our belts after that 6 or 7 season team, really helped us out because we just had more confidence with the offense and just knew what to do. So,
Plus, winning is fun. Not winning is the opposite of that. Step back away from football in that bubble that you referred to earlier. Talk about life on campus. Did you enjoy or have time to enjoy a social life? Did you have friends outside of athletics? Now, I'm not talking about basketball. Yeah, we're all buddies, friends for the most part inside of McGugin. Fraternity life, social life on campus. Were you able to enjoy those things?
yeah, I think that's something I definitely like took advantage of is like building relationships outside of like athletics and my teammates. I love my teammates. Love one of my roommates was a basketball player. Me in my first year, John Jenkins, that was my roommate. It's one of my closest friends still today. But I really got an opportunity to like build relationships with like regular students, right? And I actually live with regular students. Actually, past my freshman year, I live with regular students, people, guys that I met on campus throughout my time, and a lot of those relationships I still have. So, I definitely would say like I, had took the time to, build those relationships and meet people outside of the, athletic bubble, you would say. And then, in terms of the fraternity, I didn't do anything like that. I feel like football was enough for me, and that was my fraternity, and I didn't need anything else on my play at the time. And maybe I wish I maybe would have, but at the time, it's just
Well,
had a lot of
it's only,
so.
it's only so many hours in a day before we got to go to sleep at some point. But Wesley, it's unfortunately I hear way too often in these conversations about guys who stayed in that football bubble and wished they would have networked more or gotten to know friends outside of sports.
Mhm.
But it sounds like you were able to capitalize and utilize that to your advantage a little bit. But talk about the importance of that. Why was it important to get outside that sports bubble and to make those friendships, to network with those people? Why was that important to you at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the big, I guess the power of going to a school like Vanderbilt is the network of people, right? And and you all have a common goal, or you're going to class, the goal of graduating with whatever degree that you kind of have. And so, I was just always just curious. I was just always kind of a person. I'm just curious to meet people. Like I'm curiously interested about who you are, where you're from, like your background. I mean, I got friends that I met from Vandy that are from Germany. I got friends that are, down the street in Alabama where you're from. So, but really just the importance of it is just to like, get outside of the bubble, find out what other people do, right? Because like I said, it's just you just never know. I didn't necessarily go meet people because I think they can do something for me. I just was overall curious, and I have classmates that are doing amazing things now, and And those relationships were kind of established, freshman year on campus when everybody's new and no one is a part of a fraternity or a sorority, and everybody's just trying to figure it out. And so, I cultivated a lot of those relationships in those first, couple years, my time at Vandy. So,
And you've hit on some of what I was getting ready to ask, but now all these years later, you've been gone from school for a decade, and you still have maintained those relationships and those ties. From a non-sports standpoint, did it impact, or do you think it could have an impact, those networks, on not just socially, but for business purposes, for work or professional purposes? Has that entered your mind as to why you need to continue? I know this may sound like an elementary question, but I'm trying to prove a point here in that you did things as an undergraduate from what that standpoint for a reason, and not just to get away from the athletic bubble, but has it had an impact yet in the 10 years, those networks, those friendships?
yeah, I would say so, because it just from like, you know, opportunities for other people, right? Someone's looking for an opportunity and it could be marketing, sales, operations, right? And you can just kind of flip through your network of people that and you can pick up the phone or shoot them a message, right? And for the most part, most people will respond, right? Because you build those relationships back, and even it could be 10 years down the road, right? It's like, and I think in that sense, it's been beneficial for people in my network or people that I know, because I'm always trying to connect people anyway. I feel like I am a connector to with opportunities or whatever. So I think for that's kind of how it's impacted me, or personally, just like connecting people with opportunities. And it was my 10-year reunion this year, and just talking to some of those guys and gals that I had met, not athletes, and telling me what they're doing, and hey, if you ever have anything for this, let me know. So it's just but yeah, just for sure in terms of connecting opportunities, for sure.
And this doesn't go for everybody, but most of the folks who've been on the show who share a similar experience that you just shared seem to have a little bit more of a fulfilled and satisfied time on campus, their overall experience, if you will. Doesn't go for everybody, but just more of the trend, the more that guys were able to get outside that football or McGugin bubble, if you will, and take advantage of those things, just seems to have more of a positive impact on their overall experience. And I don't mean to get too much into the weeds, but I'm glad you explained those things, Wesley, because I think it's important. I think that's part of the experience that we all go through. Now let's get back to those last 2 years on campus, and the two bowl teams, and the change in culture. And that's what I wanted to go to. Coach Franklin did things on campus and with the football program that hadn't been done for 100 years before he got there, or close to 100 years. What was it like? How exciting was it to be part of that program those last 2 years?
Yeah, it was it was a lot of buzz on campus, and I mean it was as a player, and it's great to see that, right? Your first game, I think my last two seasons we had Thursday night games, right? Packed, sold out, jam packed. I think South Carolina and Ole Miss, right? I mean, it's just, just the buzz on campus, and I think when sports are humming and good, the overall morale of the whole campus is up, right? I mean, it's just who doesn't want to go to a school where they have the programs up, right? So I mean, it was great, but I mean, also we had put the work in to get those results. I mean, at the same time, right? Like no one was up at like 4:30 in the morning going to mat drills in February, 3 days a week, right? Like, but we did that, right? And doing all the stuff that we did in the summer and just leading up to the season, right? I mean, hey, we did all the hard stuff doing this in the off season to get these rewards and get to reap the benefits of the work, right? And during the season. So I'm glad that we were, able to do what we did, and I'll say that we deserved it, and we earned it, just that the work that we put into it. So
Two related questions. What's the craziest workout things that you remember having to do? And do you do any of them now?
I answer that second question. No.
No.
Oh, the first thing, we did things called mat drills, which pretty much is we used to do them after signing day or during signing day. It's like 3 days a week where you come in the morning and pretty much the coaches are there. It's like agility, it's conditioning, it's competition. It's all the things, right? And then you still got to go to class, right? And so I always remember the first one that we did. We did it in the gym, and we're all new. We don't know what to expect. We're like, yo, I'm trying to like impress coach. Like I'm going hard. Like I mean, it's just like the first 5 minutes is dead. Like just, I mean, we're probably 20% done with the workout, and after that we would condition it, and then we would do competitions, which if guys who were there when I was there know. I was kind of the culprit of the tire pool, right? It's like basically two guys with tire pool, and pretty much like, I would lose every time, but Coach Frank would make me keep going. Hey, Tate up again and call somebody else new. Tate up again. And so finally, after a while, some in my head it switched. And after I did not lose not one other time. It didn't matter who I was against. So I would say those morning workouts, and guys who know what I'm talking about, they know. Like, and then that first season, we used to do the morning workouts, which I might be telling on ourselves. We might be doing something illegal, but we'd come and do those workouts. And then sometimes we'd have a lift in the afternoon, after the afternoon. So those days it was rough, but it made us, mentally and physically strong.
Now, which gym are you referring to? Where was this?
It was a practice gym
Was it
in
the gym that
Memorial.
had the suspended track above it, or this
No,
is
we
in
actually were
Memorial?
in the practice gym in Memorial. And that was the first one. After that, we did them outside, and that was, it'd be like 30 degrees, so that was another factor that made it more difficult too. So
Well, I want to get to, we've got just a few more minutes, and I appreciate your time so far tonight, Wesley. Take us to that time when you knew you accepted the fact that it was time to hang up the cleats. When you knew it, your career was done, that you weren't going to the next level, or maybe you were trying for that next level, but it just wasn't in the cards for you. You remember that time period? You remember it making a lasting impression on you? Because it usually does for most of us.
yeah. So my senior year, I actually finished my senior year, but I actually got hurt. I got hurt against Missouri. I had a tackle where I had a pop in my knee, and went in, got back in the game. The next day, my knee just swelled up really bad, and so got an MRI. Saw that I had a cartilage defect, which is kind of the same injuries that it's cartilage defects in your joint. And I finished the season. That's kind of after that. I just kind of just tailed off really from production and playing really. So after the season, I got a pretty extensive surgery to get it repaired with the idea of continuing to play. And probably after a year and a half of rehabbing, and I just it's already hard enough to make it right healthy, right? And after a year and a half not playing, if I was healthy, I at least got the opportunity. But after seeing some doctors, I've flown to different places, and finally I just kind of made the calls like, hey, you know what, like it happens, right? And you can hang your hat on, hey, you got a great education, you had a great career, did a lot of great things football wise, as an individual and as a team player, and it's time to close this chapter of the book, and use that degree and use your mind to to move on to the next thing. But it's definitely a hard transition, even if it's not as dramatic as that. Even if it's like, hey, like I just want to go work now, right? Because it's you miss a lot of things like team camaraderie, being around with the guys, and just I mean, you got all this free time. What do you do? Like it's just like I'm so
Well,
used to, like this
yeah,
this
you've been
yes.
regimented since you were probably a 7-year-old kid playing sports. Was that a tough was that the tougher of the transitions, not not just the physical change because you had your injury you're coming back from, but we've always been part of a program. We've always been part of a team, a bigger group. But now you've accepted that the career, it's time to switch to the next career. How long did the transition back to civilian life take for you?
Um, I don't know. I feel like it's always a evolution and a change. I always consider myself an athlete, but it takes a couple years. I mean, it was hard for me to watch football for a while just because, just kind of what we were talking about earlier, like thinking like, hey, I could be out there, right? Like
Right.
kind of the same thing. And, you see guys playing on Sunday that you played against and you think, man, like, the guy's pretty good. I thought I was better, but it's just not how it works, right? There's a lot of guys that we never probably ever heard of, or probably could have been the best players of all time, but could have a similar situation like me, right? Got hurt and hey, it is what it is. So, I would say it took me a couple years, but I always had the mindset of like, hey, I'm not gonna let college be my best years of my life. And, those are the good old days. And, because even if you had an opportunity to play in the NFL or play for a long time, right? Hopefully you have a lot of life after sports, right? So, what do you do after that, right? Do you just kind of harp on like, oh, the good old days and those are the good times, or you just, hey, that was a chapter in my life. I'm no longer, that, and hey, what's next for me? So that's always been my kind of mind frame for sure.
Well, you don't have to name names because you're still too young because the statute of limitations is still in effect. I'm sure because I have them too. We all have them. Those guys in our inner circle, they can't seem to give up those glory days in their mind.
Mhm.
It's a heck of a lot healthier, I think. Well, that was a segment of my life. That's who I was during this time period. I may still think I'm an athlete. I still do. We all do, but we got to know our limitations. But
Right.
you still have some friends who think I still can play. I can still play in the league or whatever their mindset is. They hadn't quite given up that last little bit of thought about the glory days.
No one that comes to mind. I mean, I don't know. I feel like most guys that I know that have well moved past it and are doing amazing things with their lives, and whether it's raising families or careers, starting businesses, being doctors, lawyers, and so for the most part, I feel like guys that I play with are well on
Yeah,
their way.
before we got on this, you told me CJ Duncan is the worst. He still thinks he's playing. So now you're gonna do it. No, I'm just
I know, man. I'll see you. Yeah.
Wesley, what about now? You're in your early to mid 30s and you're 10 years removed from playing. What do you do now to keep in shape, to fuel that competitiveness that it'll never go away? But how do you deal with it now that you're in your profession?
Sorry, you broke up on me there for a little bit.
What was the last thing you heard? I'm sorry, the internet must have got.
Professional. What am I?
What are you doing now to keep in shape, to quench that competitive fire that you have?
Yeah, well, I'm still lifting weights. So, guys who know me know I like to lift, and trust me, I'm still lifting heavy, not too crazy these days. So I'm still doing like power cleans and squats and all that stuff. So I join a gym out here, like group fitness. So I still kind of get that like camaraderie group setting together, so I still do that. And then outside of that, I kind of compete in some sports, low impact stuff, pickleball from time to time. I'll pick up a golf stick, not very good, but I'll go out there and hit some and hopefully don't lose too many balls. And, I always like to throw the football around too. And I guess professionally, I would say I'm in sales. So I've always been in sales for the most part. So I guess that's kind of my like you know, that competitiveness. You can still kind of flex that muscle in sales just because, you get paid at what you produce, right? Same thing in sports, right? So it's kind of why I enjoy sales for the most part. So is that aspect of it. So that's kind of what I'm up to today. And I got nieces and nephews, so running around with them and, they try to keep me young, I guess. So
Well, good deal. Wesley, I sure appreciate your time tonight and sharing your journey, your story, and getting to know you a little bit better tonight. So thank you for being with us.
all right, man. I appreciate it. I'll see you at the next event for sure. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Don't go anywhere. Let me side off. I got some things to share with you.
All
I'm gonna
right.
take the next couple of weeks off, guys, for the holidays. Be back the first part of the month in January. We got Commodores lined up all the way through into March. Just get into our Facebook group. You'll see the lineup. Some great fellas coming on board. But as always, You guys anchor down.